What's that from?
I'm just joking.
Isn't that from something?
Not that I can think of. I have a whole story about like don't be nervous about a time I was in somewhere Caribbean, but no.
I want to hear the story.
It was with a different girl.
I want to hear it.
It was just some guy who kept saying to me, he kept coming around trying to sell us stuff, but we were like sure he was going to try to murder us.
Right.
So he kept being, don't be nervous. Don't be nervous.
Oh, okay.
Like all the time. So
You could tell me your inside jokes with other girls. It's okay.
It's one thing I love about you is that you're not jealous at all.
That's one thing I love about you too.
Is because I never had a podcast with anybody else. Is that why you're not jealous?
Yeah, I guess I'd be jealous if you had like a really dope podcast with someone else and then ours is just like not as good. That would make me jealous. I guess it's because I have pretty high confidence. So
If me and my ex had like a #1 podcast and we just never were able to get back to that height again with Damaged Goods.
that would make me jealous.
Yeah, I could see that.
But yeah, for the most part, I'm not.
So what you're saying is I'm not successful enough for you to trigger the jealousy.
No, that your exes weren't successful enough. They can't.
well
They can't
played.
meet my my bar. Welcome to the Damaged Goods podcast. I am Jess Robert, and I did my eyeliner way too thick today. Girls,
That's good. I kind of like it.
do you like it?
Yeah, I kind of like
Girls
it.
have this thing. All girls can relate to this. Where like you're like, I'm gonna do a thin line today, and then you mess it up, and then you have to do it like thicker to fix it, and then thicker to fix it, and then thicker, and then you end up like Amy Winehouse.
So guys have something in reverse. Mm-hmm. It's like with shaving. For me, it's my sideburns right now. I think they're getting a bit better because it's been a few days. But when I'm trying to make them like nice and thin and like clean,
You do them too thin.
if you do the angle in, it looks horrible.
Yeah.
So if you do it on kind of, it just looks very like, I'm trying not to say white trashy because it has nothing to do with being white, but it's just like, it looks trashy to have
Yeah.
like really like sharp, pointy sideburns.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is you make them thinner and thinner trying to get it to be a straight line. And then you get douchey, like pencil line
yeah.
sideburns. So for our bachelor party, which I'm sure we'll talk about today, I got very close to pencil line sideburns. It wasn't a problem. Nobody said anything.
No, I didn't notice.
But just like with your where you're like, my eyeliner's a bit too thick, I was like, oh, my sideburns are too thin.
Yeah, at least mine only lasts until I wash it off. You have to deal with that for a week or so, right?
That's what I get for not going to Adrian and getting myself done properly for our bachelor party.
By the way, this other sexy voice you're hearing is Ill Vibe. I didn't introduce you.
Yeah, if
We just started
you
talking
made it this
about
far
facial
and you don't
hair.
know who I am, I'm just joking. That's me.
How long does it take your facial hair to grow back in?
I've never really like counted it like that. It doesn't seem to grow as fast as some guys because a lot of guys will talk about how like they shave it and then the next day it's back type thing.
Yeah.
It's like Kevin from the Backstreet Boys. You remember him? He had like a little mustache, but then even the afternoon shadow above it was like essentially a second mustache.
I love how you give Kevin from the
No, but
Backstreet
he's
Boys
a
as,
specific
like, a facial
example,
hair example.
because even when he's clean shaved is a beard.
Yeah.
He would clean shave and you would see the line because
Yeah,
he
yeah.
had the like such thick facial hair, and that's always the example I think of in my mind for like that thick manly facial hair where it doesn't matter if you shave it.
Yeah, for
I don't have
sure.
that. I can shave it and I'm good for a couple of days. And for an Italian guy, stereotyping inward, I sort of think of us as hairy people. So I don't think I got it as
You're
bad.
not really that hairy for an Italian.
That's what I mean. I'm really
Yeah.
not. No,
Yeah.
no, I'm not.
You got it good because you have like enough hair that like, you know.
I got the olive
good.
skin, but without the like back full of hair.
Yeah,
You
totally.
know, I got a little back fuzz.
Yeah, and you have chest hair, but it's like a
Just
nice
fuzz.
consistency. It's not like
Well, it's a little
like
patchy.
It's not like a mound of chest hair.
It's a little bit patchy, but it's not a problem. No one's ever looking at my chest hair. I'm not in good enough shape nor famous enough for my chest hair to matter. But it is a little bit patchy. I would maybe take a little bit more of consistent patterning if I could. But I mean, beggars can't be choosers when it comes to chest hair, right?
Truth. So speaking of being in good shape, we got high the other night, and I had this thought, and I was gonna say it was a stupid thought, and I was gonna say it out loud, which I normally do. And I'm like, you know what? I'll just write this down for the podcast,
Love
and
it.
it might not sound as smart when I read it later when I'm not high, and it doesn't. But I'm gonna say it anyways. So do you think that like all athletes, like let's say like basketball players, do you think like every single one of them like works out every day and stuff, or do you think there's one who's just like, I don't know, I'm just really good at sports and I just
no, those people
I'm just
exist.
fit like this all
Yeah.
the time, and they don't have to do much to like
they
stay
do.
fit.
They do more than we do.
Yeah, and I don't mean practice basketball. Obviously, they do that, but I mean like go to the gym
Well,
and like
both.
lift weights and stuff.
So
and,
someone like Allen Iverson used to skip half his practices and was willing to pay the fines that were associated with that
Right.
because it was a waste of his time. because he's one of the greatest all-time players. And he's like,
Wow.
that's such a waste of my time. And granted, it was not great for team chemistry, and it's probably the reason his team didn't win as many championships or
Yeah.
any in his tenure. So that happens. It happens where people are naturally gifted with
I'm
bad
glad that
attitudes.
my question wasn't stupid. It was a good
No, it
question
wasn't
then.
stupid. And I'm sure there are people who do the other thing too, where they don't want to work out as hard as everybody else. Here's the thing. They're surrounded by people who are buying Lamborghinis because they do work out.
Right.
So I think that's not a huge number. And I think those guys are losers and don't do well.
Yeah.
Because just imagine all around us are people who, if they practice podcasting 7 days a week
Yeah.
and they're buying mansions and flying around the world and buying Lamborghinis, we'd be podcasting every night.
Yeah.
Just because you'd see that and be influenced by that and be feeling that pull to take it as seriously as all of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Because look how it's working for all my teammates. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so I think, when you get that close to the Lambos, you pay attention and you do the work, I think.
Yeah.
Lambos are powerful, bro. For me, Lamborghinis are like metaphorical. For anybody who ever got into crypto, Lamborghinis are very metaphorical for like, we'll buy our Lamborghinis one day with all this money that we're making today type
Yeah.
thing. And so even though crypto died, rest in peace, I still kind of use that as my...
Is it dead?
It's not dead. I keep saying that because it's like, I mean, we discussed this last episode, but rest in peace. But so whenever I write a hit song with the guys, I'm always like, what color is everyone's underwear? Because that's the color of your Lambo when we buy it. And it's just like this like inside joke. And maybe one day we'll buy a Lambo off the podcast too. But
just like
Lambos.
proverbial Lambo.
Proverbial Lambos. Also literal Lambos if I can ever afford it. But, one thing at a time.
But it's not the first thing you'd want.
We'll start off with the metaphor. That's certainly less expensive than the...
I definitely want like a more like practical, beautiful car 1st, like a big like ball-in like SUV.
I bumped into Carl Wolf while I was downtown. I was not dressed very well, and he was dressed very well. And so I was not really hyped to bump into him in what I was wearing. I was getting stoned before a movie. I've been going to see a lot of movies. That's why I'm wearing this cool Equalizer 2 hat for my our video listeners. Maybe we'll talk about my recent video adventures or my movie theater
let's do
adventures.
it.
But I bumped into Carl Wolf, and I had just been on my Instagram because I'm smoking weed out on the street, right? And I'm like browsing my Instagram while I smoke. This is me in my whole life. And I see Carl, who I know somewhat well, and for people who if you don't know him, he's this like R&B pop star who did like a cover of Africa that did really well, and he's had a number of other hits. And on his Instagram is this crazy BMW with like the Lamborghini doors, and it is easily the nicest car I've ever seen. I'm not a car guy, but it's in that echelon of cars. You know what I mean? I'm sure it's not as much money as the Lotus or whatever, but it's fucking crazy. But then I look up from my phone, and not exactly, it wasn't like a movie moment where there it was, but it was like 12 minutes later.
Yeah.
Carl Wolf pulls up and I was like, that looks like that car from, and he rolls down the window. He's like, what's up, Billy? And I'm only slightly name dropping to say like, I looked at it, was like, I need to work harder because it was so nice. It's just like the nicest, like, bit of wealth I've ever seen, like right in front of me by another songwriter who's kind of in my lane. And I was just like, holy shit, you really can do this to the point of having a Lambo. In his case, it's not a Lambo or whatever.
Totally.
But, it was just very inspiring. So I'm feeling super amped up this week on us making some monies and being legit. And Lyric Vids does so well. It would be really dope if Damaged Goods and some of our other hustles could catch up to that,
Yeah, totally.
Buy some Carl Wolf cars.
What would be your first choice for a car pick?
I don't know. That's not the first thing I'd buy. Like you said, we talk a lot about, I really want to buy a house. I really want to make the way we did with this room, where we took one of our passions and we made it a physical place to go spend time in. I would love to do that with all of our dreams, buy a house and really like do some cool, never been done before shit with it. Make it a whole
totally.
paradise for us. That's the first thing I would do.
Yeah, definitely. I could see us like pimping out our living space before we buy a crazy expensive car. It's like the car is just for like point A to point B,
It's not useful.
Yeah.
But again, you see that and you're just like, wow, you can go get those things if you really bust your ass enough and have some breaks work out for you. And
totally.
it was really inspiring. What else you got?
We got this really cool painting from John.
Thank you for addressing it, because I shared it on our stories. It's in our shout out section on our Instagram if you're listening and you want to see it. Tell us about it, Jess.
So this is from my friend and I guess listener, which is awesome.
Yeah.
John, he painted this beautiful Dragon Ball Z picture for us. I'm a big Dragon Ball Z fan. I have my little Vegeta here. Now
That's right.
I believe this is. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get the characters
your
wrong
game.
now, and now everybody's gonna. It's either like Raditz or Brawl.
The cool kids won't care, but
Yeah. Anyways,
somebody will care.
somebody's gonna care, and I probably really messed that up. But
It's a Dragon Ball Z.
it's a Dragon Ball Z picture, and I really appreciate it. And I'm probably gonna. I just taped it to the wall just for this episode, but I'll probably frame it and put it in a different spot as
Yeah, I'm
well.
about that. And he even wrote the little Damage Goods logo on it, which is cool.
Yeah.
So thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Adding to our cool space, and I think it's fun that you said that now because that's really what we're trying to do with this room is have it be like tonight, for example. You know, context, backstory, behind the scenes. We're sitting around trying to figure out what to do. I've kind of just been feeling cabin fevery and not depressed because I feel fine, but like antsy. Like we've been so busy. We've been planning the wedding. We've been doing so much that's so great. But in those in between periods, like on nights like tonight, I'm like, I just don't know what we're supposed to do with the next 8 hours. You know?
For sure.
So then when we turn on this big light and I power up the Adobe Audition and then we come in the room, it's these little bits, the stuff that Andy gave us, the stuff that John gave us, and the little gifts from along the way, the fucking first aid kit that I come in here and I'm like, oh yeah, I feel like even before the listeners listen, it feels like they're here. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's like we're in the voice and the brand and the vibe of the show even before it's live and it's a thing, because otherwise the only difference between this and what we were just doing 20 minutes ago out there talking about current events is we came in this room.
Yeah.
But this stuff really does it. And so thanks to everyone that contributes. And so if you want to contribute some stuff, it could be some art that you drew. It would be really cool if it was custom to the show. But anyways, feel free to contact us and submit it. We've got lots of wall space and we'd love to fill it up with more cool stuff.
Yeah.
What?
So we just finished. We were just rewatching Big Mouth.
Yeah.
So very rarely, I think we might have talked about this in the podcast before, but Anthony doesn't like rewatching anything. He very
Just
rarely
my ADD. It's hard
wants
for me
to watch something that he's already seen, which is odd because he also forgets everything that he's seen. So you'd think that he wouldn't mind rewatching it.
So caveat, let's come back to Big Mouth. I also watched Snowpiercer, the movie, again from 2013. As long as I forget enough about it, I will watch it again. If I remember I enjoyed it or I just want to see it, but I don't remember enough of it to spoil it for me, I'll watch it again. If I can think about the plot twists and turns and the little things about it I didn't like, when you say, do you want to watch this? I go, I'm going to spend the whole movie thinking like, oh, this is where it gets kind of shitty. I just can't get out of that headspace and enjoy the movie.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So if I remember it too well, I can't do it. The only time I can is if it's like Ready Player One. I've seen twice. I feel like I could watch it again right now because there's something about it that I'm like into. So there's certain movies I can watch multiple times because I get kind of like into the ride of the movie and I'm down to go on that ride a few times.
Yeah.
Denzel movies. I know exactly the parts I don't like. I know some of the... I'll watch it 100 times. There's something about his movies that I enjoy the ride of. But anyways, yes, Big Mouth is special.
Yes. So if you haven't seen Big Mouth, it's on Netflix and it's a cartoon by
What's his name?
Nick Kroll.
Nick Kroll, easily one of the funniest people in the world. Maybe, and I love to fucking make claims like this, but like one of the best voice actors. Like his character game is outrageous. The Kroll Show, I think they did 3 seasons of it. One of the best sketch comedy shows ever made, and he just made 3 perfect seasons and walked. So he's kind of got this Ricky Gervais-esque. He doesn't miss. Everything I've seen him do since he kind of really, I'd say 4 years ago, started really making a move in television and movies and stuff.
Yeah.
It's all hits. I love
You
Kroll.
don't like the what's the 2 old guys one?
Good point. It's not all hits.
Yeah, it's not all hits.
There's something weird. And here's the thing. I love that. So the characters are, is it called Too Much Tuna or is it?
Let me look it up.
For now, I'm going to call it Too Much Tuna while Jess Googles it. But it's basically a character where it's 2 old, I think Jewish men, and they're always pranking each other with too much tuna on a sandwich in these really bad...
Hello show?
That's it, yeah.
Okay.
So, but then what happened is they took it from the sketch show that we love so much with these characters that are quite funny, and they did like a very campy Broadway show where they interview people in these characters. Did not enjoy. But that could also be me not really getting the stage.
Yeah.
as much as the screen.
Yeah.
But rewinding back to the important part, which is not the Kroll Show and is not his shitty Broadway spin-off of the Kroll Show.
Big
it's
Mouth.
the animated show Big Mouth, which is my favorite animated show maybe ever.
Yeah. It's basically just like a kind of a coming of age, is that what you'd say? About puberty, essentially.
Going through changes. It's the theme song.
That's the theme song. And and I think it tells it from a lot of different perspectives. It tells it from like the girl's perspective, kind of from, you know, the awkward thoughts you might have growing up and being confused about what's going on with your body and stuff. It's actually really good. I feel like they should like show it in schools if it wasn't so like inappropriate.
Yeah, it's pretty adult for schools, but I know what you mean by that.
Yeah.
It's also super useful.
Yeah.
So I would say this: if you are looking for something to watch, I would feel comfortable enough to say this is like our recommendation of something that you could like binge watch it with us, because we've been rewatching the series. I think we're on episode 4 right now, going back through it a second time.
Yeah. There's not that many episodes.
There's not that many episodes. It's fantastic. Very
good.
funny. There's little Family Guy style cutaways where it's like, remember the time, and then they cut away to it. My favorite thing about the show is, you did say it's a coming of age tale. On the male and the female side, is they have these monsters, and the monsters represent their hormones.
Yeah, hormone monsters.
And so I've never been a woman. I can't speak to the female monster, but the male monster is very telling to those moments where you're on a school bus, you get a boner for no reason. And it's like the monster sort of explains why you got a boner for no reason in that moment or whatever. Or, you know, your friend brushes up against you. One of my favorite moments is on the show, they keep showing this Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson trailer for a movie.
Yeah, that's right.
And he's watching it in bed, and his penis moves. He gets a little boner from watching Dwayne like get oiled up or whatever. I call him Dwayne. We're friends. And the whole episode, he kept saying like, "Am I gay? I don't know. Am I gay? I don't know. Am I?" And that was so like too real for being like 13.
Yeah.
And someone introduces the possibility that you could be gay and not know it, or, you know, the first time that you see somebody of any gender, like you see a man that's impressive on TV and you're just like impressed by him, and you're 13, you're like, does that mean I'm gay?
Yeah.
Being impressed by a man? Oh no, I'm gay. I'm definitely gay. And then it's just, it was so real. That's what I love about the show.
Do you think like homophobia and stuff kind of created an environment where it would be like, oh my God, am I gay? And do you think that'll go away in the future, where like a 13-year-old boy might see something and think, oh, that's kind of sexy, and then be like, but you know what I mean? Like, it's okay to think that one moment is sexy, and that doesn't mean I'm gay. You know what I mean? Like, do you think it'll be more normalized?
Yeah, I think even in my own freak out was a little bit of a seed of homophobia. Like, I'm not homophobic. But
this is also 20 years ago when...
And I was a little boy, and I was just... I think there was an aspect of like, oh, I don't want to be that. And yeah, there was a little bit of homophobia in that...
it was like scared that maybe you were
like,
that.
What I was seeing around
fear.
me suggested that wouldn't be pleasant. Nowadays, that's changed quite a bit. So nowadays, I think if I was that same age and I was thinking, oh, I might be gay, I might still be scared because of the intensity of, am I gay or am I not gay? There's that level of fear.
Yeah.
But I think I would have been a lot less scared of the possibility of being gay.
Yeah.
Because the data that I'd be looking at is a lot more positive. I'm seeing gay people accepted one way or the other. They get jobs that has nothing to do with anything. And, you know, that age, that was the age of, as long as you keep it in your bedroom, I don't want to hear about it. And that was kind of the 1996 version of being not homophobic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so even though my family was not homophobic and they don't have an issue with gay people and they never really said anything anti-gay, there was a little bit of that mentality, like just don't put it in our faces. And so, yeah, when you're 13 and you think about it for the first time, you're like, oh, am I the thing that my parents wouldn't want put in their faces?
Yeah.
So even though that's not homophobic the way you would talk about it maybe in a news story, I think there is some of that, and I think that we are getting already better. I imagine if you talk to a 13-year-old boy today, they might even flirt with the idea of being gay or not for a little while, and it's not so much about being scary as it is about being a fit, and that would be great if that's it's hard.
Yeah, totally.
It's also a weird time, right? It's intense. I remember being the first time I dated a black girl, telling my parents, like, okay, guys, just heads up, she's black. And they were like, we don't care. And of course they didn't care. But just all those things, like, do I like black girls? At 12, I think I was intense.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I was getting into new things. It's like exponential emotional, hormonal experience and growth. So every time I kissed a girl in front of people, I was like, am I into that? like fucking in front of people?
Yeah, I
'Cause
know
it's
what you mean. It's just like everything that you do is amplified. Like, oh, am I one of those
is that
people?
my thing? Is that going to be my thing now?
Yeah.
It's like you don't know, right? And then ultimately it turns out I'm pretty PG and I do a little bit of all of those things, but I'm not a swinger and I don't only sleep with black girls. And it's like I'm in the middle on that stuff. But at
Do you
that
find
age,
that you
didn't
still
know.
go through that, like where like you'll see something and you'll be like, oh, like apparently like this is my thing. You know what I mean?
You know what?
Like,
Here's a very real conversation. Because I believe I'm 100% heterosexual as far as that goes. But also in my adult life, my understanding of what being gay has changed. I believe a lot in a spectrum. I see so much evidence of a fluidity and a spectrum of sexuality. And so as I get older, I try to connect that back to me. Because I don't want to be that guy who goes, yeah, you know, sexuality's fluid, except for with me.
yeah,
Because that's just not how science works. You know what I mean? And so I just try to be aware of, do I have any of that? And I don't pick up on it, but I think if I'm being super transparent, I think I'm probably blind to it if I have any, because I was raised that there's only black and white, you're only gay, you're only straight.
Yeah.
So I've just spent all of my life being straight. And so if I had 10% on the spectrum, I wouldn't know, I don't think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
It's like I think I'm too late in the game to be deciding I'm 10% gay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And maybe that's not real. I don't know, but it's certainly. I feel like almost nobody is 100% straight or 100% gay.
Yeah.
They probably find other people of the same or different gender attractive at times. But most of my friends call themselves 100% gay, and I would imagine that most of us are 5%. Or 100% straight, 5% gay, maybe 15%, and not enough to make you want to go date the same gender, but that you've got a little bit of that in your spectrum. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if it's based on anything. That's just, I guess, my take on how that works.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably right.
What about for you? When you were young, did you think about, am I be gay? How did that cross your mind the first time? Do you recall?
Yeah. As our listeners probably know, I come from a very Christian.
I hadn't even thought about that aspect, but yeah.
A Christian upbringing. So it definitely was something that if I did think about it, I think I suppressed the thought because I was also in a small town where I didn't know. I knew a couple gay guys. Like I not knew them really well, but like there was a couple gay guys. I did not know any lesbians. It was just weird. It's just like I don't really remember. And maybe I did, but they weren't out or whatever. And so I think it would have been something that I thought about more if I allowed myself to think about it more, or if I was in an environment where that was encouraged or accepted.
Do you think that in small towns maybe there was a slight lead on gay men being outed and women because you see them first? They're slight in theory.
Yes. So yeah, because I do think that, and I have to be careful to not say anything offensive, but I do think that,
of course,
if you were to put a gay man in front of me and a gay woman in front of me and said that, are these people gay or not? And I had to guess. I do feel like I'd be able to guess the man easier than I could guess the woman. Not always.
But, and because the reality is, and this is interesting, when I was young, my perception of gay people was the obvious gay stereotypes.
Yeah.
And I think largely that's probably because that's the first thing that we were educated on, and the people that were gay and hiding and just acting.
Yeah, and it's also
straight.
the ones who are famous because they're big and larger than life and all this thing. So it's like we're seeing that as like the norm as to what gay people are. I met a lot of gay men in cosmetics. So all the men that I worked with are the stereotypical gay male.
Working in makeup.
Because I was working in
makeup.
makeup.
The other thing is because women are more open to gender fluidity and sexual fluidity, in your small town, there may have been girls who are experimenting with being gay and then coming back more readily than small town men. Does that make sense? So I'm just saying that the men that you're seeing that are gay are the ones who are like willing to come out and be this whole thing. Does that make sense, or am I being crazy right now?
Yeah, so sorry, repeat the first part.
I'm just saying because men, we already talked about how, in my experience, heterosexual men that I know are pretty closed off to the idea that they could be on a spectrum of sexuality.
Yeah.
The men in your small town would have been like that as well.
Yeah.
So the only ones that you're going to be able to tell, not knowing them from a quote unquote distance, are the ones who are like, are looking to be seen from a distance.
Yes.
Versus women are willing to maybe go 20% in, try it out, come back.
Yeah.
Have a lesbian relationship, try it. Maybe do 2 of them in a row and then come back and date a man, and not necessarily put on a butch vest and like
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Are you allowed to say the word butch?
I'm just saying, I'm talking about the 90s and the things that you would have been able to tell from a breakfast diner.
I know. I'm just trying to be correct.
No, trust me. I'm definitely aware I'm walking on that edge, but I just think it's interesting to talk about because I think all intelligent people know that gay people aren't making it up and that almost immediately the next thought becomes, well, the odds are not that you're just like all the way gay. You woke up or you're all the way straight. The likelihood is that there's middle ground.
Yeah.
Almost everything has a middle ground. There's blonde, brunette, and middle ground. Everything has a middle ground.
Yeah.
And so it's like the minute you go to that, you have to turn the camera back in your own direction and be like, well, if there's a middle ground.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
So with me too, I think the difference would be on how young I was when I thought about, oh, maybe I am type thing, is watching porn as well. Young boys tend to watch porn earlier. I didn't watch porn till I was an adult pretty much, till I was like 20 years old or whatever. So and also I learned that I almost like exclusively lesbian porn, which some people might argue.
When you realize that about?
When I realized that I only liked lesbian porn, I guess when I started watching porn. So
would that have been rough?
Well, yeah, then my 20s, probably early 20s. Yeah. And since then, I've kind of gone all over the spectrum as far as porn goes too, and kind of dabbled in different areas. But I always kind of come back to lesbian porn.
Yeah.
So I think that if I was 13 when this happened and I didn't really have any boyfriends yet or whatever, and then I was like, why do I only like the porn with the girls in it? I think definitely, am I gay? Would have definitely more popped into my head, whereas it kind of didn't, because it was almost like not something that I thought about much, because like I said, I didn't really have exposure to it. So it was never like a question that
it would have required.
I felt like I had to pose myself.
Feeling for a woman to make you go there. It wouldn't have just been, yeah, my friend Jen's pretty, I must be gay.
Yeah. And that's also why I think that
I'm falling in love with Jen.
That's why I think that I'm not gay too, is because it's never, when I was young, I never was just like, oh, this girl in my class or whatever. That did happen later. And we won't get into that on the podcast just because I have family listening. Sure. But that definitely did happen later, where I'm just like, oh, I'm attracted to girls as well type thing. But it definitely wasn't my go-to. Do you know what I mean? When I wasn't born with it. You know what I mean? Like, I was obviously born, like you're saying, somewhere on the spectrum.
Yeah.
But I wasn't born being like, I'm definitely attracted to girls. It didn't really happen until later when I started experimenting
as
with more
your
things.
sexuality developed and then you were exposed to it. It's like, oh, that's also hot.
Yeah.
And I think that's different, right? It's like what turns you on and who you're romantically attracted to can be different. I think those things develop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So one thing, for example, here's an example we talk about internally, like in our relationship, and I'll talk about it here so that people are on our page.
Yep.
Is the whole Joe Rogan foot fetish thing.
Yeah.
So Joe Rogan talks about being quite young and a girl rubbing her feet on his dick, and then he says for the next sort of chapter of his life, he had a foot fetish.
Yeah.
It developed from an experience that was sexy, and now he has that fetish. That doesn't. Let's say. We'll make a pretty big jump here, but again, you and I have had this combo before. Let's say he'd been a little bit younger and a really charming guy had given him a hand job. He's born how he's born.
Yeah.
Maybe he isn't en route to becoming gay if he had just been developed in a different town. But now maybe that's sexy to him.
Yeah, totally.
Is to get a hand job from guys that he finds charming. And I'm completely developing that. I've not experienced that, and to be honest, that's not a story you hear a lot from guys.
Yeah.
But if the one thing can happen, I can see no reason why the other thing couldn't happen.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And so I think that that thought experiment sort of proves that your sexual preference might not always equal up to all of the things you think are sexy.
Yeah, no, totally.
Right?
Also has to do with rape fantasy and stuff like that as well. It's just because like you might enjoy watching porn that has something in it that you don't necessarily ever want actually done to you. You know what I mean? Like
this has been a weird one for us.
Yeah.
Because I believe that they don't want the real thing done to them. For sure, I'm not saying that. Save the hate mail. We don't get any hate mail, but save the pretend hate mail. Nobody, even if they fantasize about something, wants that thing. Nobody. But they do think there's something sexy about it.
About the fantasy of it.
Yes, and about the act. So they're role playing the act. They're role playing being held down or choked. They're role playing.
But it is separate from real rape.
Totally.
Okay.
No. Totally.
Because it's like when I hear that a girl got raped, I never feel a twinge of sexualness. It's always like revolting and like disgusting. 100%. You know what I mean? But it's just like, yeah, like you. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
But if you compare somebody who's never had, because this is always the thought experiment I've done when we've talked about this, is if you compare somebody who's never had a rape fantasy, the idea of a rape fantasy makes them cringe. That person wants to be raped less than the person who fantasizes about it every day.
Okay, well,
you know, it's an intense claim, and I'm sort of poking and having fun with this intense claim.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, because for example. What if it's a gangbang fantasy? Let's go away from rape because that's a really loaded concept.
Yes,
and it changes everything.
Let's do gangbang because that's actually one that I've had. I definitely went through a phase where I watched a lot of gangbang porn, and I watched. Can I get super like personal?
Yeah, sure.
I watched a lot of like bukkake porn, so with like 10 guys like coming on a girl's face at once. Yeah, so you don't get it, and I would never. I'm telling you right now, there is not an inch of me that would ever want that in real life. Never. Not with the 10 hottest guys ever. I would not ever want that. So I don't know what to tell you.
You're not there right now in that space, but I would say if you were watching every time you watch porn, if you pulled it up and you're like, because I don't watch a lot of porn, but when I watch it, I sort of know what I'm looking for. So if when you're pull it up and you're looking for it, you're like, that's the bullseye is 10 or 10 to 12. 12 would be perfect. Guys bukkakeing on this girl's face. And every time you pull it up, you're like, that's the one for me, man. That's the one that gets me where I need to go. And then in the next room over is another person who I show them that and they gag. You want it more than them is sort of my statement. Is that there is because the reason this even came up is it's not just random and like slut shamey. We've talked about it with you because you bring up things that I think are somewhat peculiar, and so I joke a little bit about like, oh, you must kind of want that thing.
Do you think that it's a man versus woman thing? Do you think that most guys would share your opinion? Because guys are very much so. If I watch porn with a big butt, that means I like a big butt and I would want to fuck a big butt in real life. And whereas girls are able to be completely fantasy with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's not about reality at all.
Yes. So maybe we've just identified my own personal blind spot.
Yeah.
But dudes love like weird fantasy stuff too. Fucking sisters and moms and babysitters and
that's true, yeah.
Underage.
We talked about that on our first episode.
Yeah, that's right. And so there's a lot of fantasies that those men would say equally, I would never fuck a family member. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's just something that's kind of taboo. And in fact, somebody we were hanging out with recently that I think of as not being that debaucherous that they would ever like watch, like said that's their thing. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
That's your...
Well, it's if you didn't listen to our first episode, mom and like stepsister, sister porn is like the top rated porn. It's like the most
I think for a lot of guys, that's the one that they would say, it's not real.
And do you know, but I would compare that to the bukkake thing because the bukkake thing, it's just like, how dirty can I get? It's just like the dirtiest of dirty. It has nothing to do with actually wanting that in real life. It's just like when I'm watching this porn and I'm trying to get off, it's just like, what's the most forbidden thing? And that would be pretty forbidden. I would never do that in real life. You know what I mean?
Right. I think it's time for me to just acknowledge that this is a blind spot for me because all of my fetishes, and I know all of them. I'm not a guy who doesn't think about it. I could list them in order of preference and frequency I would like them.
Yeah.
And they're all things that I would want to do in real life.
Yeah. Like, yeah. So I think it's just
I don't really have like dirty fantasies that I wouldn't want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like once in a while, maybe a little bit of anal and porn because that's not really my thing in real life. But it goes there and I'm like, oh, that's hot right now because it's kind of built up to that or whatever. And that's not something that I would want to do that much because anal's not really my thing. It's too much work for the most part for me.
Yeah.
So a little bit it feels like that feels familiar in that way because when I'm watching that, I'm going, well, I wouldn't do this.
Yeah. But because it's a sexy scene or whatever, you'll just...
So I can relate, but you guys just go way further with it with your octopus porn and your fucking giant lobsters.
Yeah.
And
I don't want to be fucked by an octopus.
Same time and people having sex with all of their cousins at the same time.
Orc porn.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's just like giant orcs.
Horkas? No, it's not
Horkas?
Good. I was saying like whore-cuz, but it's not good.
The orcs are usually the dudes. The girls are just humans.
Is that real?
Yeah, that's real.
Tell me about orc porn, please.
It's basically like as intense of rape porn as you can get because it's like giant like ogres. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Just broke my mind a little bit.
Sorry. Didn't mean
You're so innocent, and in some ways,
I know.
you know all the
I
bad
know.
stuff.
Sorry to any family who's listening to this right now.
While we're in the dark side, we don't really do current events that much, but since we were like getting ready to podcast, I was kind of scrolling through my Flipboard app that I use.
Yeah.
And so I saw a couple things, and one of them was really sad, and it's pretty time sensitive, so we should talk about it even just briefly.
Yep.
And it's that I think we're about to lose Miss Aretha Franklin. Have you heard about this?
Oh yeah, I think I saw some people.
Yeah, they
post
just
about
pretty
it
much her
today.
people have put it out there that she's like in the bed she won't be getting out of type of thing. And we don't really do that much, but Aretha Franklin is one of those like 3 or 5 artists that in my 20-year-old years before Tinder, but when I was like chronically single and dating and like wondering if anyone would love me, I would listen to hella old soul music. Aretha Franklin, Gladys Knight, Motown. I mean, I would like take 30-minute showers and just like listen to that shit and like sing. And when I read about it, it made me really sad that it's like I'm not one of those people who really freaks out about like celebrity deaths. And when she passes, we'll have a little sad moment. I'll put one of her songs on, and then the world will move on. But it's just one of the news headlines that I was just like, wow, man, that's one of those ones. It's like Michael Jackson, Aretha Franklin.
Yeah,
She's saying R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
I know.
That's like the one.
Yeah,
There's a bunch of other ones like Say a Little Prayer for Me and like big songs, but R-E-S-P-E-C-T is like one of those songs that seems so big it seems like no one ever wrote it.
Is
It's
it
just
Is it
was
bad
always
that I
there.
didn't know that she wasn't already dead?
No, because
It's
she's
not
like
like she does much now,
no, because
right?
yeah, no, I think it's okay.
I still think it's really sad.
She's
but
an old lady. Well, that's all I mean is it's just like it's not like oh we're losing her. We almost went to see her in concert because that happens where there's people touring and then you lose them. You know the guy from Gord from Tragically Hip, etc. But it's just more like her music meant a lot to me. Like
Yeah.
those moments, I could write a screenplay based on those days just because they were like super soul searchy when you're like chronically single, apartment to apartment. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I'm smoking too much weed, but hey, there's no one fucking tell me not to. And it was just
Yeah.
like 22 years old. You know what I mean? And I would listen to so much old Motown music. So it really does hit the spot when I hear those records. Like that's why when I proposed to you and was who were we listening to? Was it Sam Cooke?
Sam Cooke, yeah.
And it's like that stuff. That stuff is like all the quintessential moments of my life. So I don't even know if Sam Cooke's alive or dead. I don't know.
Oh, he's dead.
Okay, but but when these people when they die, even if I find that out later, then I go, oh,
And to make sure Sam Cooke is dead.
you know what I'm
I'm
saying?
pretty sure he was alive at a time where he couldn't be alive.
They don't
right
put out
now.
new music in their last 20 years, and that's
Yeah,
cool.
he died in '64.
Oh, so we got it a long time ago. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't put music out in the last 20 years of their life anyways. And the ones that do, it's not really the music that you love them for. But when they pass, it's fun to be like, not fun, but it's, what's the right word? Important. It's important to me to now acknowledge the ones that like really shaped you.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
if the bass player from Bush X dies, and by the way, I don't know who that is, I have no ill will, I'll be okay. But there's certain people that really like, they really touch you. Steve Tyler, whenever he goes, when I was young, like it's a bit corny, but when I was young, Aerosmith was like the biggest band on the planet.
Yeah.
And that man was like, when my dad talks about the rock stars that passed, like it's hard to believe Prince passed, he was going to live forever. Like I don't know.
Yeah, you were never a big Prince guy.
I just was never connected like that.
Yeah.
But there are certain people that seem like they might live forever.
Oddly enough, I got super into Prince like shortly before he died.
Interesting.
Because this is actually a funny story. So he was coming to do a concert in Toronto, and I worked at a costume store at the time. So his tour manager or whatever came in, and she was like, "Do you guys have body glitter?" We were like, "Yeah." She's like, "I need to buy like a lot of it." So we sold her like so much body glitter, and she told us, "Oh, it's for Prince's concert. All this, I think Prince and all the stage people are all going to be wearing all this body glitter and stuff." And then she was like, "Do you guys want some tickets or whatever?" So she gave us like 6 free tickets to see Prince. I'm sure they were like $80 tickets.
That
you know
late
what
in his
I mean?
career, they might have been a $150 ticket.
Yeah, and I think it was just that the show was that night, so it wasn't like
They have comps.
and they have comps, and it's probably just that too. There's maybe some seats left, and they just want to fill the amphitheater, right? So it's just like, why don't
Prince was selling out. I
Yeah?
bet they're comps.
Okay, there were comps, yeah.
Because he's one of the guys when you started talking about him, where I said they don't make music late into their career. He did, and
Yeah.
people cared about it.
Yeah, totally.
You know,
Yeah. Do you remember
Did
his?
you went to the concert?
Yes, I went.
Was it good?
It was amazing. Yeah.
That's cool.
Do you remember his appearance on SNL that was fairly recently before he died?
I would have
too?
seen it, but I don't
Where he had
remember.
the glasses, where it was like the two glasses with like the third eye glass.
Sure, yeah.
Anyways, and SNL let him do like a 20-minute performance. It was like it took up like a lot of the show because he's such a big deal. Yeah. Yeah, super cool.
I never connected to that. My dad had all the vinyls. I grew up knowing that if you didn't like Michael Jackson, you probably liked Prince. I always knew that was like the other big guy, but I never plugged into Prince like that. So when he passed, it didn't mean anything to me, and I say that in a specific way. I was sad, and I think the way I look at it is this: we're all going to die, and so if you really lived your dream perfectly, I'm happy for you. Kevin Smith calls it a big bucket of win when somebody passes and they got nothing wrong. Prince got nothing wrong. He never slipped. He never got off his game, and all the fans were like, nah, I'm not with it.
Well,
no, he's crazy.
yeah.
He's crazy.
Yeah.
But creatively, the
yeah.
artist Prince
Yeah.
lasted like 50 years and was relevant forever.
Yeah, true.
That's all I mean. Yeah, I'm sure behind the scenes, people who work for him are like, bruh, it was fucking impossible working
Do you
for
think
this guy.
Chappelle helped with that?
I'll tell you, he put Chappelle on an album cover.
He put Chappelle on an album
Chappelle dressed as Prince on one of his album covers.
on one of Prince's album
Yes.
covers? Really? That's amazing.
It's a famous story that Chappelle talks about when he got the call, and he was like, "I love the character. We're gonna I'd love to put a picture of you in that character on."
Yeah,
maybe it was single
because
artwork.
when you
but
think
was
about it,
something like that.
it is being funny about Prince, but it's not really putting like a bad light on him.
No.
If anything, it's just
It
making him
builds
look
up the
badass.
mythology of him.
Yeah.
Like the person who is probably the most light shedding. Have you ever heard the Kevin Smith story about Prince? You must have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
From his
Where
big,
he's just like, they handed me a confidentiality form to sign. I didn't sign that shit. And then it was just so busy that he just didn't sign the confidentiality form.
And he talks about how Prince had a safe full of tapes and albums he had made, but he never planned to release until after he died or something like that. So interesting. But anyways, as an artist, it's cool to think about a guy who made music to the minute he fucking...
But that made him look like an asshole, right? Like he said a lot of stuff.
It was just sort of weird, yeah.
Yeah.
I think ultimately it's weird because Kevin Smith got paid or whatever, but we don't like to think of somebody who's just like so rich they're just making thousands of hours of movies just to put in a safe. That's just sort of bizarre.
Totally.
But I don't care.
So I know we just got out of a sex talk and now I'm going to bring it back to it. I wonder if anybody like listens to our podcast at work and then has to like turn it down on like points where we get like
I think
really
people probably
like
on headphones for
intense.
podcasts, right?
Yeah, like bukkake in the middle of their office.
Bukkake.
But anyway, so I have a friend who's a cam girl. You know her. She's an escort and a cam girl. She's been in one of your videos.
That's right.
Yeah, so I won't say her name, but yeah, she's a super cool girl. I've shot lots of stuff for her.
I'm really intrigued about her whole shit on Instagram.
Yeah, and she's very openly a cam girl. So she posts pictures
That's
on...
the part I'm most intrigued about.
Yeah. So she posts pictures on Facebook and on Instagram. I would love to have her on the podcast, by the way. If she doesn't live in the city, but if she ever comes by and she's interested, I'd love to have her on. But she posts pictures of herself like half naked and stuff. Sometimes she'll post a naked picture, but like the nipples are blurred out or scratched out or whatever, with her link to like her cam girl thing on it. So my question is, who are these people who are commenting on her Facebook or Instagram posts, like just like ridiculously dirty things? Like, do these people have like families who use Facebook, children, friends, even just friends?
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you comment on something, if you know what I mean, it comes up in people's feed. So let me read you just a few of the comments that I've seen.
I love that you did this.
Yeah.
Okay, go.
So we'll go from better to worse. You probably taste so good. So that was one. Nice and tight and just right.
Rhymes.
You have a very sweet butt, good enough to kiss and lick. Can I kiss your butt? And then the last one is, I'd eat candy corn out of your asshole. So
That one was at least creative.
that one was
He
at least
might be kind of tongue in cheek.
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of them are just creepy. Like, oh, I bet your pussy would taste good. Like just like things like this, right? And I'm wondering, like, would you ever comment at any point in your life? Would you have ever said anything like this on a girl that you thought was attractive?
No, I definitely used the internet to further my relationship with girls that I met around or whatever. Like I definitely was not like a little goody two shoes on the internet, but it wasn't through thirsty commenting.
Yeah. If anything, you'd probably send them like a private
The
message.
move was a well-timed like, and a message was the move. You like a really good picture of them, and you send them a well thought out message. That was always my move.
Yeah.
Is if they're funny, you joke with them, but that's just like good internet flirting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People who are sending those thirsty messages, the reason they're doing that is they know she's off limits to them, that her whole game is just to show you stuff and then you pay, right? So none of these guys are going to get any further with her.
Yeah.
So there's nothing on the line.
Right. But what do you think about like their like family and friends and stuff seeing it?
There's nothing on the line. That's interesting. So the payoff is they say it. It's like people who flash their dick. The payoff is that she has to read the messages in their eyes. She probably doesn't even read them, but the payoff is that, she'll have to read this. And then it's kind of like flashing them in a way.
Yeah,
you know
like,
what I mean?
she saw that I said this dirty thing.
Yeah, it's just this naughty thing, and they have to feel naughty for a second, right? Yeah. Now, family, I think half of them are gross bachelor types.
Yeah.
And I think I've been watching a lot of scary reality TV on Netflix, and a heavy percentage of them are like, Ron was a father of 4. Married for 6 years. It's like, he's been busy making babies and murdering people on the side.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, a lot of these people have families and
just don't care.
This is how they act out, you know? Or they manipulate their wives into not ever being able to read what they've written.
Do you think some of them are like dumb older people who don't know how the internet works?
For sure.
And they don't think that anyone would ever see. They're like, well, I'm friends with this escort girl, but my wife's not friends with her, so they would never see what I wrote. You know what I mean?
On Instagram, you don't really get notifications what your friends write. On
Facebook,
it's
true. On Instagram, you can get away with it.
Yeah.
But on Instagram, what you do get is if I look at someone's picture, so let's say I go to Ashley Martel's picture or whatever, the closest person to me, I can see that they liked that picture. And I can also see their comments in the...
But you would have to go digging for that.
In the first two comments.
If you're kind of a manipulating, cheaty husband, you can sort of buffer your wife out of that, maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't know who Ashley Martel is.
But you'd think you'd be safe about it and not post public comments, you know?
No, I mean, it's a good point. I don't know. I'm not a cheaty person, so I don't know exactly how they pull it off. My answer is this. Most of them are cocky and think they can get away with it.
Yeah.
And they often date women that they can control. They've got the kinds of personalities that they can kind of talk around and, well, you don't need to be on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. I don't have an Instagram account. John doesn't let me. You know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of abusive guys who are very, like, they control their girl to create a better situation for cheating.
Oh, no, now this just got sad.
I'm just saying, you asked the question.
Yeah.
That's if they're the kinds of guy who, because half of them don't have kids. Half of them are just, they work night shifts and during the day they're on the internet trolling people.
Yeah.
The other half have kids. Their wives have fallen asleep and they're up on the internet saying dirty things to people as a method of acting out. And either those people don't care about their wives or they're manipulating them away enough to not ever paying attention to where they're acting crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Dudes be tripping, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. I think that I almost said her name. I think that this person who it's okay. I don't think she would care anyways. It'd probably be like promo for her. I think that she doesn't mind it. So I feel okay about it. I just laugh when I read this stuff because I feel like those are like her customers. You know what I mean? Like if they're sending her private messages, I bet you she's just sending them a link and just directing them to her page.
She's got a whole
flow of that kind of makes me feel okay. But unfortunately, the dudes are still shitty. You know what I mean? Like just because she's okay with it doesn't mean that they're not shitty. Which is kind of a segue into my next topic. Unless you had something else to say.
No, I've got something that segues into as well. What's yours?
So my next one is something we've talked about recently, which is catcalling and what is okay, what is not okay. How do you hit on a girl in 2018?
Okay, let me give my little thing, and let's come to catcalling because catcalling is a really good one.
Yeah.
So we're just in relation to internet comments, Instagram comments, and watching kind of the worst shine out from them. There's a really big news story right now about a guy named Ninja. Ninja is the #1 Twitch streamer on Twitch. He has 10 million subscribers. This dude has 10 million people subscribed to watch him play Fortnite. Mm-hmm. Crazy, eh?
Yeah.
So he made a statement that he won't play, like team matches with female gamers because all the comments, all the tweets are like dirty tweets about, like, oh, you're probably fucking her, blah, 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 blah.
It's a problem.
And online gaming, the chauvinism is fucked.
Yeah, because there's no policing it, really.
It's fucked. It's like
There
YouTube
is
comment
policing
level
it, but
fucked.
not good enough.
Saying horrible things about women and gay people and racism. It's the worst of the worst. And the reason that concerns me is it's like if you don't police, if people can say whatever they want, if there's a little void, if there was a little void here and you could scream into it, most people would scream the N-word. And that's like scary to me.
Well, not most people, but yeah.
A lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people.
And I mean, not just that one word. I use that as an example, but like hateful things. And it's just when I read that story, that's not really what that story is about. That story is a little bit more about the gossipiness and the like, oh, you're probably fucking her, blah, blah, blah. But it degenerates into the types of shit that people say when it's just a username and they can.
Yeah.
And I think that it's not the exact same thing as catcalling, but there is a link there where it's like this anonymous, penalty-free, I get to just yell into the void and you're not going to do shit.
Yeah. For sure.
And it's just super gross.
Put a pin in catcalling for a second, just because I want to talk about another thing that has to do with what you just said, and that's that like the internet still needs to catch up with policing a lot of things that are happening, and that would be one of them. Another one is something I brought up recently, which is false ads, like false advertising. So false advertising on billboards, super illegal. The billboard will get pulled down. False advertising in commercials, TV commercials, if it's proven to be false advertising, it could get pulled from the air or whatever. But false advertising on the internet is just like okay, like everyone does it.
Well, it's illegal. It is outlined as illegal,
but it's just like
the systems aren't there.
There's no way. It's too big. There's too much, and there's no way of penalizing all these companies. You know what I mean? For example, there's this game that I play, that fashion game. Actually, no, it was the home decor one that I play, and there was an ad put out for it that was showing like you like renovating like these houses, and it was like a dilapidated house was like the before, and the after was like this brand new house. I'm like, did they change the app? Like I don't remember getting to like make a ruins almost like into like a house. And then I checked in the comments, and everyone was like, this isn't at all what the game is. Wow. It was just to get people to click it. So, and I've seen a lot of other even ads for like puzzle games and things where I've downloaded a game before because I'm like, oh, I would love to play this puzzle game on the subway or whatever while I'm killing time, and it's a completely different game. So they can literally just advertise for one game and then you download a different one. Like,
now there is two solutions. If it's within a country, like, and obviously within a country, you can still, I think, probably file with the Advertising Commission.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what it's called, but there is an Advertising Commission in Canada and USA.
And I just don't want to be a narc, but it's like I should be reporting these things when I see them.
And also you can report it to
because
Facebook.
Because otherwise it'll never...
Because Facebook, if they see that those comments and two people flag it or whatever, I think they would pull it because it is against their... Like, we get our ads denied constantly for hilarious reasons.
Yeah.
Like, we need to be way more careful about the things that we talk about and call the episode, because we've been accused of being pimps and human traffickers. We've been accused of selling tobacco products. We've been accused of selling gambling services.
Wow.
We've been accused of today, the most recent one was denied because we were speaking about Facebook business practices, because on the last one we did the last clip on our Instagram is about how Instagram gangsterized Snapchat features. So you're not allowed to sponsor a post that talks about Facebook business. And it's like, there are so many fucking rules. Like, legit, our podcast growth is slowed down because we have a little allocated budget every month. We take this podcast super seriously. We have advertising budget. I cannot spend it because social media has so many rules, YouTube and Facebook, about sponsoring things that talk about anything of any level of
if Bukkake is buried within the episode.
No, I think it's about title or if it's in the clip. Because
when we put those 1 minute clips, and then you usually do the subtitles and stuff
even
too,
if
right?
you don't, they scan it for words that are problematic, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, it's super intense. So
Bukkake.
You would... See, I want to call the episode something Bukkake, but I can't.
I know.
Because then no one will ever hear it.
I know.
Because we appreciate our listeners, the slow but growing number of listeners of every episode we have. But one thing that we really want to do is we want to reward those listeners by creating a larger listener base that they can kind of be a part of and have this thing grow into something super real. And we're willing to spend the money to do it. But so far, YouTube and Facebook, I've really been on some fuckery, so I might have to take the budget over to Twitter.
Yeah,
and see if we can, and see if Twitter's going to be a little bit more open.
I wonder what the Twitter world is like as far as
ideas.
like gaining podcast listeners.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that would be the place where you go to.
But they have hundreds of millions of users, and a lot of them listen to podcasts. And so
That's
I think
true.
it's just about trying to find new people so we can keep growing this thing.
That's true. Catcalling.
Catcalling.
So something that's come up a lot recently is catcalling. I have been approached in the street several times lately, and I've come home so angry just because like something happened. I'm
You've
like
been
throwing,
coming home lit when it happens.
But a lot of things, and then when I talk about it on Facebook, a lot of the a lot of the comments that I get from insecure guys is just like, oh, he can't do anything anymore. You know what I mean? Like that's always the defense, is just like guys thinking they can't do anything anymore. So I'm a centerist. I sympathize with this, with guys being confused and not knowing. So I would like to shed some light and just to kind of clear up what is okay and what isn't.
Jessica Robert tells you how to not be a douchebag.
So, catcalling in the street is never okay. So trying to like yell at a girl, yelling even you're beautiful or whatever at a girl, it's never okay.
You
and
need
I
more
think
examples though, please.
nice ass, like your boob things,
How about smile?
smile. Ugh. Okay, that's never okay because a girl's just trying to get from point A to point B. She doesn't want to talk to anybody. Really big thing. Do not ask her to take her headphones out if she has headphones in. She has headphones in because she doesn't want to talk to you or anyone else, whether they're catcalling her or bothering her to buy something, whatever it is. She has headphones in for a reason. Don't ask her to take them out. Catcalling is not okay. One of the main reasons is because catcalling culture is almost like everyone always says, oh, do you guys even think that ever works? I hear like a lot of girls say this too, like, oh, why did they do it? It never works. Exactly, it never works. And I feel like most people who catcall know that it doesn't work. They're just doing it for doing it. Like you almost said with the commenting on like, oh, nice ass or whatever. Because you're reading it, they like it. I think it's the same thing with catcalling.
They got to talk to a hot girl.
Yeah.
Whether she wanted to or not.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Because they can go back to their friend and be like, you see how hot she was? Yeah, I probably could have fucked her.
Yeah.
It's like a thing that dudes say.
Totally. Another thing that I hear a lot is that some girls, they'll be like, well, some girls like that. I've even heard girls say this to me. Well, I actually like it when I get a whistle or whatever. I've had girls say this. So this is my answer to that. Yeah, exactly. You're allowed to like it. However, how do you know if a girl likes it or not? You don't. You have no idea by looking at a girl who's walking by whether this is going to be the type of girl who likes it or not. Not because of the way she dresses, not because of anything. You don't know whether she's going to like it or not. So as soon as you yell something at her, you're taking the risk that you make her feel unsafe, you make her feel uncomfortable, or even just to be honest, you make her feel annoyed, which is usually what happens to me. I'm just annoyed because I'm just like, I don't want to talk to you. And like, I'm not looking for that attention. You know what I mean?
They could always, I said when you did this on Facebook, and whenever I have this convo with somebody, the debate always skips to me a really easy, obvious way to resolve this problem. Mm-hmm. If that guy simply waits for eye contact and a smile, the problem is solved.
Yeah.
Because if you wouldn't look at a man who's standing outside of a bar, make eye contact and smile, and then be mad at him for saying hi. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and honestly, if I stood outside for an hour, and I'm not a supermodel, eventually a girl would make eye contact and smile with me.
Yeah.
And then I could say hi.
Yeah. I think the smile is key because just because somebody looks at you to make eye contact.
No.
Sometimes I make eye contact because I want to make sure they're not about to jump me. You know what I mean?
Like side eye looking at somebody as you pass them is not what I mean. We all know when I say eye contact
you
and
mean
smile,
like
it's like they've looked at you,
they've invited you to
smiled, they've kind of
interact.
given you a body language hello.
Yeah.
And now you verbalize a hello back.
Yeah.
And I don't even feel that PC saying that. I'm just saying like, look for some indication that this person is interested in anything from you.
Yes. And now, what happens if you do choose to do this? You think you got eye contact, you think you got a smile, you say hello, she doesn't answer, she keeps walking. What's the right thing to do, Anthony?
You stand there and play again.
Yeah, well, I don't know about play again.
Well, that's not how I operate. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
we're describing the kind of douche that we see out on the Danforth
Yes.
near our house, and there's like guys who are standing there all day catcalling girls. I'm just saying,
Yes.
wait for the ones to make eye contact and smile, and if she doesn't, or if she doesn't reply even to that, you let her continue. And you look
Totally.
for another girl who might be interested, because let's be honest, these guys are looking. That's all. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to play realistic.
And
These
if
are not guys
every
who are being
guy, if
passive.
every guy said hi, and when you didn't say hi back, they didn't say anything, they just moved on, I don't think catcalling would even be as big a deal as it is. But the reason it's such a big deal is because it creates a scary, unsafe environment for women. often, so often. I would say 80% of the time that I'm catcalled, if I don't answer, I get, hello, did you hear me? Or I'll get, bitch.
Really?
Or
80%?
Yes, I promise you. 80% of the time. If I'm alone, 80% of the time.
That sounds high to me.
It's not always like, bitch. Like, it's not always that aggressive, but it's just like, well, you're welcome. I get that a lot because I'll have a guy say, hey, beautiful, and I don't answer. And then he goes, you're welcome, or whatever. And it's just like, it's this thing that like puts me in a bad mood. It's this aggressive, like gross thing. And it's like, and I'm not even saying, oh, I'm so sexy and I get this all the time. It's not even that. All women get it all the time when they're alone. You know what I mean? Like, I almost wish that I could do like an experiment where I bring like a camera around with me, but I know you believe me. It's just like, it happens so often when I'm alone. It's just like, I almost like dread leaving the house alone. So guys, if you're listening to this, just know that a lot of women dread leaving the house because of catcalling. That's all you need to know. And even if you disagree with me, that's okay. But just know that it makes a lot of people uncomfortable, and just rethink next time you're about to do it. Because it's a big deal. Now, on to the lighter side of things. When is appropriate to make your try? Like, how are you ever going to meet people? How are you ever going to talk to girls? When is it appropriate? This is just my personal opinion. Some extreme feminists and extreme like PC people will say that even this is not appropriate. But I think, I think that if you're at a party, let's say, and there's a bunch of people and there's a girl or whatever that you see that you like, talk to her. You're at a party. You all have mutual friends. She's in a safe environment. Of course, if she's not interested and she's kind of giving you signs take the cue and move on. But I think that if you're at a party or even at a bar where your table's next to a table full of girls or whatever, and if you strike up a conversation and they seem into it, I think that's awesome. That's a win. If they're, like I said, you just take the cues. If you strike up a conversation with a girl at the table next to you at a bar and she's not into it, you move on, you know what I mean? So I'm just saying there's a lot of appropriate times that you can hit on a girl, you can meet women, you can have good experiences. Yelling at one in the street is never going to work, and I think it just needs to stop.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think the only note is we might have contradicted ourselves when we said that we don't think that they even think it works. You know what I mean? It's almost like they're being mildly predatory.
Yeah, so I do think that the majority are being mildly predatory.
Yeah.
But I think that the guys out there who are just like,
so the advice is,
like, how do I meet a girl then? Maybe they're confused.
So the advice is for good guys to not
exactly. This advice isn't for creepers. Creepers, fuck you, middle finger.
You're right. No.
This advice is for
creepers.
nice guys who are a little bit confused and scared right now, and they don't know how they're allowed to talk to women. There's so many ways you can talk to women,
and I understand because I don't feel this way. Even when I was single, I was always, we've talked about this before, my thing is a girl being into me, so I was never the one to push the line. I worked at a modeling agency and never hit on one of my models. This is not my thing, you know. But I understand if I was 21 and what's happening now is happening, I would understand the notion of being nervous about like, ooh, things are changing quickly. I don't want to be labeled a douchebag because by overstepping a line that might be shifting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I've never been bad, but definitely 20 years ago, I was a little bit more chauvinist than I am now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I could see how a 21-year-old would be nervous. But the reality is it's quite easy to understand what's okay.
Yeah, it really is.
Once you fully understand the concepts of like microaggressions and the way that small little things can really weigh somebody down.
Yes.
It really helps shape how you approach all of these things. Because even as a guy, it would be easy to understand how if everywhere you went, people were staring at your dick, that would become tiresome.
Yeah.
I love sex. I love when a beautiful woman looks at me and thinks sex.
Yeah.
But if everywhere I went, all people did was stare at my dick, that would become so tiresome. And if you don't see that or agree with that, then you are a crazy sex addict, and we should discuss that.
A recent story that happened to me was I took Callie out for a walk at 2 a.m. So it was super late. It was after me and you were watching a movie, and I was just taking her out to go pee out front, super late. And a guy who seemed like he looked like a nice guy said, do you know where main station is? And that's the way he asked. So instantly I let my guard down because I was just like, oh, this is just a guy who's like legit looking for main station. So I'm like, oh, it's over that way. he's like, are you sure it's not that way? And I'm like, nope, it's for sure that way. And he's just like, how do I know you're not lying? And then I'm like, oh no, this is becoming a whole thing. So like everything I said, he was being like playful and like trying to like be like, and I'm just like, it is 2 a.m. I am walking my dog and you made me put my guard down by like asking a legit question that I wanted to help you with. So anyways, my point was saying all this is that girls constantly have their guard up when they're walking down the street. So if a girl is a bitch to you, it's not because she's a bitchy girl. It's because this is like something that we have to deal with all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be mean to everybody who asks me for directions. So I think that if we just kind of understand and stop this.
In a lot of ways, I feel like the system has really let both genders down. We told women and men these were their roles, and that's not the only thing they wanted to do was those roles. You know what I mean? Like, and we told men that, you know, Big Mouth covered this in today's episode we watched. We told men that women don't want sex, and we told women you shouldn't want sex. And then we all grew up really fucking confused because we weren't given the appropriate information. And what we have is a weird world, because you and I have talked since the beginning of our relationship about the weirdness about how men are instructed that it is their job to go into the world and find the woman. And that fact alone shaped my entire adult life. Because women were not coming looking for me. And so I must go out there and make the pitch to as many women that I'm attracted to as possible. That I am interesting and sexy in. And part of that is that I'm not the best looking guy on the planet. But part of it is that that's the game that we were all told it was. You know what I mean? Like, I've dated empowered girls. I never really dated like
housewives,
like housewife types. Good. Yeah. Thank you. But still, every single one of them I met, it was me going, so hey, over there. And so we're kind of told that this is the game. And so I think what we've seen is it's the perversion of that game. It's gotten worse. It's all fucked up. We don't know what we're doing or why we're doing it. And then we've got as the next generation coming up with a slightly better sense on their head about how to do it. They're slightly more sexually empowered, and we're kind of making fun of them for it. And I think we are going in the right direction where it's going to be a little bit more open, a little bit more communication, a little bit less shame. And that should lead to less catcalling. That's kind of where I'm getting at. Because if guys are used to girls being like, actually, I do want to fuck, and they look them right in their eyes and say that.
They wouldn't feel
you
the
feel
need
less, because I've never been catcalling, never been bad, but I'll tell you what I have been. A girl's told me no, and I've thought, well, it's no for now, but if I flirt with you at school tomorrow and next week...
that's such a toxic thought to have.
I know, and don't get me wrong, never did anything that wouldn't be consensual, but definitely I thought, well, I'll win her over then. Because that's kind of how I was taught to be, that it's like, well, she doesn't see me yet.
I think I've said this on the podcast before, but I actually had a guy say to my face that... you don't want me now, but you know, I have my ways of getting what I want, or like something. It was something like that, and it came out
you say that
so
after mine,
creepy.
My part sounds way creepier.
No, I know,
it wasn't like that at all.
I know. But it was so creepy. But I could also tell that he just was taught that confidence is sexy, and that
it's worked
being a go-getter as far as women goes, like go and get her, and you know, don't give up, and blah blah blah. That's sexy, and that's determined, and that's like confidence, and it's like, no, that's not confidence.
That's why I said society let down both genders. Because also women weren't told that they should go pick their mate.
100%.
And so men feel like, well, I have to do this because they're not coming my way over the hill. I got to keep going over the hill. And I remember my brother once told me very young, because he always got more women than me, even though he was younger and shorter than me, but he's a good looking dude. I'm not saying he was younger and shorter and got way more women than me, you know? And he'd always say to me, it's a numbers game, bro. You just got to not get heartbroken if they're not into it. You move on to the next girl that you'd fuck. And I just never really got to that headspace. But he didn't get there out of nowhere. Those are the rules of the game. I just never wanted to play them that coldly. You know what I mean? But when you hear guys talk like that, I don't love it, but I do understand. At least from my generation, things have changed a little bit. Women are more sexually empowered right now, but where a girl was sort of told by her mom to say no, even if you mean yes. Do you know what I mean? I don't mean rape-wise. I mean, like, tell him no for 3 weeks, and then maybe if he's paid all his dues, jump through all the hoops, and if he's real husband material, then you go to second base. And it's like, so when you're a guy and you know that that's what your ex-girlfriend was like, and you meet a girl who goes no, you go, in 3 weeks might be yes. Because that's
Yeah.
what my mom is telling my sister as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm just happy we're getting past that
So
point
much so.
where, for both, like you said, for both sides, because it's like, it's nice as women to not have to pretend that we don't want it, because as we all know now, we want it.
As we all know now.
As we all know now, girls like sex. Newsflash.
Do you think Tinder's good for that? Because it's like guys and girls are swiping. There's no denying.
Yeah, no, I think it is good.
That as a guy to hook up with this girl who she had to swipe on you too.
Yeah.
So it's automatically less of a you have to buy her a drink.
Tinder is set up for consent essentially, because it's just like
Interesting.
both people have to look at a picture or look at the profile or whatever and be like, yep. So you've both consented. Now you can start sending messages. You know what I mean? It's not just what's it called? Not eHarmony. What's the other cheap one? OkCupid.
Yes.
So OkCupid is just like Facebook for dating. So anybody can message you. You just have a profile and people just message you. And I literally had it for like 2 days and I deleted it. It was just like dick after dick after dick,
Wow.
like so bad.
But Tinder's a little bit more. It has to be both ways.
Yeah, Tinder is more. Yeah, it has to be both ways. And I think Bumble is even the girl has to approach first, which I don't know what kind of environment that creates.
Yeah, I like that.
I'd be
I think it's positive. One thing that just popped in my head about the whole economy of hitting on is like the buying drinks thing. It's interesting because it's not just about the approaching. When you're in a place where there's drinks, there's a custom where the man is buying free alcohol for all the girls,
Yeah.
hoping that one of them is interested. You know what I mean? And that's I think that's very telling to what we're talking about. There's no custom that women are buying men drinks to see if they're interested.
Yeah, I think more and more.
No, certainly.
Yeah.
But you would ask out of 100 people, if we were on Wheel of Fortune, out of 100 people,
you're right. It's still,
they would all say 100.
It still is leaning that way, 100%.
Because even you used to go to clubs with some of our friends when we first got together, and you'd be like, I hope you don't mind. We just get drinks bought for us all night.
Yeah.
And it's like, because the guys are doing that as part of this, like, it's a value gap. The girls, what the guys are told is the girls want to fuck you less than you want to fuck them. So you gotta sweeten the deal.
Yeah.
You got to rent a nice car. You got to take them to a VIP. You got to buy them free drinks. That's honestly what you're told as a kid. I was taught that. That's damn near in the textbook.
Yeah.
They want you less than you want them, so you need to sweeten the deal and make it more interesting for them.
What was I saying earlier today about currency? Oh, we were talking about why the woman's...
I appreciate you saying it because I can't say it.
Yeah, why? So we were talking about why the woman is so much hotter all the time than the guy she's dating. And we were just watching a decorating show that was showing a couple.
Watch any reality TV show. Look at the married couple.
Yeah, it's like a married couple. The woman is, especially a rich married couple, where it's like they own like this crazy fancy house. The woman is always attractive, and the guy is just like, you know. And I was talking about how there is different currencies, and I think that the bottles and the cars and all that stuff is like the man's currency, and that the looks is more so the woman's currency. Now, I'm not saying that's right. No. I'm not saying
and
that's
it's
okay.
And
it's changing. And obviously, my looks are not the only currency that I have. And you, whoever's listening, as a woman, you're way more than your looks. And guys can be good for their looks and all that stuff.
But that doesn't mean that there wasn't a wave of relationships that.
Yes,
weren't like that.
I'm just pointing out the obvious fact that we have lived in this type of society for years. So it is going to take us a while to get out and to adjust to this new way of living.
It all starts with, like I said about earlier, talking about everything else. It's like, what are you taught? Like when you're raised, you're given the parameters. You know, they talk about the rich dad, poor dad thing. It's all about what are the parameters you're taught when you're first shown what the sandbox is. What's possible? You know what I mean? And so when you're a little girl, the parents don't love you any less. But in some of the generations, I would say from like modern times to, you know, it was at its worst as far back as our history books go, and it gets progressively better. Mm-hmm. But the message for women was that they're the B, they're the beta, you're the supporter, you raise the child and you'll keep the home, and progressively less of that. Now the message is equal, but I think we still have some of that in the system. We're still washing some of that out of the system. Yeah. Because even if you tell your kids it's 100% equal, well, how come all of our aunts aren't equal to all of our uncles? You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
It's like, well, they still see that.
They're seeing evidence of the contrary.
And so I think that's why you kind of need a few generations to weed it out. But I think we're right on the cusp there.
Yeah,
I think we're right on the cusp of that not being even.
Sometimes I'm sad because it's just like, I hope that I get to see all the things that I want to see before I go, you know?
That's such a fun way to look at it, and that's how my brain works. Yeah, that's one of my biggest sadnesses. Because I think that things that we know are coming that we won't get to see.
Yeah, we're going to see awesome things in technology, but I think as far as like social like evolution.
Yep.
Think about how long it took, you know what I mean, even for like slaves and things like that, like how long we're still dealing with the repercussions from that now.
Yep.
And that was, you know what I mean, so many years
so,
ago.
there will
we're
always
still going to
be echoes of it in our lifetime,
we're still there's going to be echoes of it until we die.
Yes, I
echoes
agree.
of sexism, echoes of racism.
But I think if you look at the 90s to now, what's that, like 15 years, I'd say, from the year that I'm thinking, we came from don't rub it in my face with gay people, not even really knowing about trans people, except for tranny, the word being not a really nice one.
Yeah.
And racism being not discussed, but probably even worse, because the reality is I don't really know how bad racism was in the 90s because we didn't talk about it as much. I thought it was getting better at the time.
Yeah.
But my guess is, looking back, it was probably much worse than it is now.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
no one talking about it, which is probably so frustrating if you're black.
Yeah.
So from there to look where we are now in 15 years. So in another 15 years, I could see us getting to a point where we're looking back at those years being like, holy shit, I can't believe that's in our lifetime it was that bad. You know what I mean? Like,
that's where the term woke comes from.
if we were to come the same distance we've come from then to now in the next 15 years, we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Because now we have
for sure.
women running for office. My favorite bosses I ever had were
And
women.
that's exponential.
CEOs.
It's exponential growth, but I
Exponential.
still think that, I don't know, I still think we have a long way to go.
We do. And especially if you mean the echo part, because there's definitely going to be echoes of it.
Just one last thing to kind of touch on what's okay and what's not okay with Just Robert is the word pussy. We talked about this the other day. So pussy. So when is it okay to say pussy? So I think this is just me personally. I don't speak for womankind, but
You're the only one here for now.
yeah, I think it's okay to say pussy when you're talking about a literal pussy.
Like a pussy.
So
the pussy.
The pussy. I have a pussy.
The pussy was fantastic. Is that okay? Or no?
No, it depends. So that brings me to my next point, that I do not like it when pussy is used as a term for a group of women.
Yes.
So when they're like, oh, is there going to be any pussy at that party?
Let's go get some
Let's go get some pussy. Yeah, that's not
Pussy
okay.
patrol.
Because that's just like, the woman doesn't even exist anymore. It's just this like, it's just like, it's become this sexual, achievable thing you want to conquer. It's also not okay to use as an insult, and I know that you've been struggling with that, and I appreciate that you try.
The problem is that I used to really enjoy it.
It's because you're a rapper.
And I like to swear. I'm a swearer.
Yeah.
And that's
As
what.
you wear a
My
fuck a
shirt
hater
says
shirt.
"fuck a hater" on it. And so I liked saying that. The reality is, not only is it not okay, and I know that, but it's an ineffective word, because pussy means weak. Pussies aren't weak. Women aren't weak.
Yeah.
So I've started saying weak, and I try to be more specific, because it's about if I'm gonna swear and if I'm pissed at somebody, I'm not one of those people who says you shouldn't insult them, because I've seen a lot of people where you're talking about these words, they're like, well, why are you insulting anybody at all? Well, day to day I'm not, but once in a while it calls for it, and when it calls for it, I want to make them feel bad. I don't want to make you feel bad when you read the message. That's not the point.
Exactly.
So
you don't want to make a whole gender feel bad.
So I've started being way more specific.
Yeah.
Like, you are weak, and I'm really disappointed that you don't understand what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's way more effective than being like, pussy. Because it's like, honestly, I don't think he feels that bad at all about it.
Yeah.
And women in general do. So, anyways, I'm just trying to be more effective with my words. And a lot of the time, the right thing to do is also super effective. That's all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where it's like, it makes people feel good, and also you're better at dissing somebody when you just be more specific.
Yeah, it's true.
How to diss people properly with ill vibe. Da-na, da-na. You got anything else? You want me to bring something up?
I got some other stuff.
Go.
But,
I'm loving it.
this is totally 360, 180. What do you call it when you change the
I
topic?
think it's a 720.
No, I don't think that's
It's a
correct.
180.
Is it a 180?
Yeah.
This is a total 180. But I listened to a series of podcasts called The Habitat. Do you remember when I was listening to this?
Yeah, I was sleeping.
Yeah, you were sleeping, and then I think I listened to it on some days when I think you were traveling or something maybe, and I listened to most of it.
I'd be traveling.
Excuse me. And basically, oh my goodness, I have to drink. My throat got really dry.
So basically, Jess has been watching or listening to this podcast one episode at a time called The Habitat. It's kind of like a science podcast.
Exactly. And what they do is to make tests for Mars and what it's going to be like for people to colonize Mars is they're putting people in these domes, about 6 people in these domes for a year. And I think they're still running the experiments now, but the Habitat, the podcast, was about a specific 6 people, and they recorded them the whole time they were in there. And now there's probably been 2 or 3 groups of 6 people hanging out in these pods. But my question for you is, so if career wasn't a thing, obviously, a podcast wasn't a thing, just mentally wise, do you think that you could dome it up for a year with 6 people?
Podcast from Mars.
Podcast from Mars.
So could I do what I do up there? Like make music and podcasts from Mars or no?
Yeah, so they have instruments there. That was one thing. They got on each other's nerves a little bit because it's small. And sometimes somebody would want to play the instrument and the other person would be like, shut up. So you could, yes.
Is it 1 year?
It's 1 year.
I'd do it for 1 year.
Yeah.
I would do it for 1 year just because I really value rare experiences that I've thought about a lot. Like I don't value, if it's, for example, going to a mountain I've never heard of, that sounds like it might be rare, but I don't care. I've never heard of it. But, going to see the Great Pyramids of Egypt, I've been thinking about that thing since I was 8. So I would love to go experience that. So I've been thinking about Mars since I was 8.
Yeah.
So
just to clarify, this isn't actually on Mars. This is just tests. It's on Earth.
Oh.
Sorry, I didn't explain that properly. This is tests to see what it would be like on Mars.
Why would I do that?
To test people psychologically. I don't know, for money.
No,
You
I would never do it. There's nothing useful. There's not even a good story.
So once
I lived in the desert for a year and I proved people could go to Mars. It's literally the most least useful thing I could say to somebody. If I said that to somebody, their response should be, "You had a year to give up just to move to the desert?
Yeah,
you're a loser." Anyways, no, I wouldn't.
But if it was on Mars, that would be different.
I would go into space under all circumstances except for one. You might die. We're really not sure about this one.
Yeah,
because. For right now, I think all the main space missions, you could die, but only if something goes horribly wrong. But those early ones, they were like, this rocket might blow up. We just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have been one of those astronauts.
This rocket might blow up. We just don't know.
We've never blown up a rocket this big before. I'm watching a show called Strange Angel, I think it's called. Strangel. And it's about the people who invented the first rockets. And literally, science was so new that the other scientists were basically like, it's basically witchcraft.
Right.
They don't believe that it could work. You're going to blow something up in the ground, it's going to go in the sky. But then, of course, I haven't made it to this episode yet, but I imagine they'd get it to work because we have rockets now. So I would not have been one of those astronauts.
Yeah.
Where there's like a 40% chance of death.
What's the difference? Like,
I'm a pussy.
Do you need to be? Hey, do you need to be like? Oh yeah, obviously you need to be going a certain speed to like break the atmosphere, whatever the atmosphere. Yeah. Is that why you need to shoot like a rocket, like an explosion? Because if you just were in a plane and you just drove, other than like breathing inside the plane, obviously you wouldn't be able to breathe. But if you just drove your plane up, could you break that, or would your plane like crash? What would happen?
Yeah, because that's a good question. I don't know. I don't think it wouldn't crash. But I don't know the exact reasons why.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, does a plane engine have enough power to just drive upwards and drive into space?
So far away that if it was planes in the slow plane speed, it would need way more gas. Like, so the explosion it pushes them so far up in the air. It might be about, because they have to go a lot further than a plane's going, right?
Yeah.
They're going significantly further, so the explosion is about, probably, my guess, complete guess here, welcome to Damaged Goods podcast where I guess at science.
Yeah.
The explosion is about a fuel thing to get them up to a certain point, because that's when the part drops off, so that's the fuel for the explosion.
Yeah.
And now they have their own fuel to keep them going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
But I don't know. Rockets. We're planning a bunch of travel right now. Mm-hmm. I'm about to go to Prague for hip hop camp. I found out that I'm playing on the Thursday at 5 p.m. It's the first set of the day, but that's where I go because I'm not a legend, and it's all legends after me. But this made me think of a bunch of travel that we have coming up that's more important. We have a honeymoon that we haven't planned yet, and at the same time, I've already been tickling about an anniversary trip.
Tickling about?
Yeah, I'm trying to be literary. I'm like been tickling you with discussions of our anniversary.
Sometimes I'm hard on myself for like not thinking of the right words fast enough, but then when you say tickling about, it makes you feel a little bit better.
No, it's okay. Because we're not going to have kids, and we're going to. And the thing we've always talked about is like our metaphor for what we're going to do instead is have dinners in Egypt, right? And so I'm like, hey, we're getting married. We better get going on this whole dinners in Egypt thing, because if we're not going to do the other thing, let's live our best lives and be this version of us.
Yeah, for sure.
And so one thing I'd love to do, and this is always the kind of thing that you see in like Netflix documentaries, but not in real life because people have jobs and stuff, but we don't, is I want to do like a crazy trip every year and do all of the coolest things on the planet. You know what I mean? And if you take all of the sort of the handcuffs off and the walls off, you start to realize we could legit do all of the things.
I know.
We can start right now and we can do all of the things. One of the ones that I brought up is because I saw it on a Facebook ad, is like the Holi Festival in India.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about that briefly, but also where I'm going with all this is I would love to ask you, you just take the handcuffs off, you take off the limitations. Where would you go? What would you want to lay your eyes on? What would you want to do? Is it riding a camel by the pyramids? Because I'm sure that's a thing. Is it going to Fiji? Is it like for you, where would you go? In the next 5 years, we're going to do 5 of these.
Yeah, I think you did really nail it with the Holi Festival in India, because I would love to do that. For listeners who might not know, I've been a huge fan of Bollywood music, Bollywood movies. I did professional Bollywood dance for years. I've been a huge fan of all that stuff.
You're a long-time cultural appropriator.
Yes, I'm a long-time cultural appropriator.
So what is the Holi Festival for people who...
don't ask me to explain. It's going to make me even look even worse.
No, but you can give like a brief explanation to like...
Yeah. So the visual explanation of it is people wearing light colored, usually like white clothing and things like that. And as celebration, which that's the part that I don't know what exactly they're celebrating. They're throwing like the powdered dye around in the air. So like the videos of it are amazing. It's always just like a huge party in the streets. There's certain areas that are more popular than we looked for the tourism stuff, more popular than others for it. And yeah, I just think it would be a really amazing experience. But obviously I should probably do some research on what we'd actually be celebrating.
Oh, of course. Before we go, we'd learn tons about it.
Yeah.
So that's one is the Holi Festival. And yeah, that's where they throw all that colored powder. People have probably seen those cool slow motion videos of people throwing the colored powder at each other in the white outfits. It's just one of those moments that it just is like a international image that people from around the world have kind of like celebrated and known as like a cool thing that happens in India. It's, it's not a wonder of the world, but it's got that kind of element to it where it's like an international, we all kind of know about it and think it's cool as fuck, right? And so I would love to go be there, do it. I don't want to run with the wolves, but it's kind of that kind of thing. It's like a cultural once a year event that everyone kind of knows about.
Totally.
For me, I think that what I want to do is I want to go to the most paradise places. I don't know if that's your thing, if that's all you care about, but I want to go to the islands in Greece. I want to go to Fiji. I want to go to the places that you only get to go to if you're shooting photos for postcards or you're Jennifer Lopez on vacation. That's where I want to go.
One thing that I'd really like, and this isn't so much as like going to a place and like doing like tourism stuff, but it's more so like where we'd be staying within whatever place we go to, is I really would love to do one of those hotels that have like a mini pool in your room.
Ooh, that's cool.
I've looked into it and they're really expensive.
Yeah, but for like a 5-year anniversary or something, we could do that.
Yeah, I would love that. You know who like sparked me like really liking that is Famous was posting Insta snaps of him and his girl, like, and it had like a long pool like in their room, but then also the pool like led out into the outdoor balcony area, so it's like half in their room, half on the balcony. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I could definitely be down with that.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll be one of them too. Is sometimes it can be about
and I've seen them in Greece, I've seen them in
and
Fiji,
other times
you know what I mean?
Like about kind of pampering ourselves and going for that kind of experience in a place like Greece or Spain or something.
Another thing I saw, and I actually told you about it just before the podcast, but I'll briefly mention it, is in Hawaii, there's like a lazy river that basically you go into tubes and you go to like the top of a mountain. They probably drive you up there and you start it, and it's 3 hours long, and it just goes through caves. It goes through like tunnels. It goes down little like mini waterfalls. It like you basically like tubing for like 3 hours through like beautiful, beautiful Hawaii, where I also want to go because Jurassic Park stuff is there too.
I love it. We also have to go to Italy, of course.
I'd love to go to Italy. Yeah.
I'm Italian. I've never been. I've done a lot of Europe. Italy's just kind of like a step away from. I've been briefly, actually. I had lunch in Italy at the airport before flying into France. But I'd love to go, and I don't know. It's just weird. It's when you're Italian and you've never been to Italy, it just sits there on the list with like an open checkbox next to it. And you're like, eventually you got to go.
Yeah.
You got to go back to the place because, I'm an Italian guy who lived for most of my life in a very white town. I live in Toronto right now, but most of my life was spent in Barrie. And when I moved to Barrie, I was the darkest guy I knew. There was no black people. There was a couple of Asian people, certainly no brown, Indian, East Asian people. And so I was the most ethnic person I had ever seen. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had a few friends from kindergarten when I lived in Toronto, but when you're at that age, you quickly sort of forget that. And so I was just living in this very white town. And so I always felt very, very Italian, even though I'm only half. My mom is actually from the UK, or her family is. But I look dark, the olive skin. I've just felt Italian. It's just been very much a part of my identity since I was very young. Yeah. And so, every time I go to Europe and I'm like near Italy, I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta go there. I just gotta like spend a week and like feel it and just be in the energy of Italy. And I would really love to do that. Like do 2 weeks, like 1 week in like Rome and 1 week in Venice or something like that.
Another one for me too, which you've already done, but I didn't get to do, is the hot parts of France.
I be traveling. You haven't come to Cannes yet.
No.
Oh, baby. You're coming, and here's the best part. You're coming.
Because I speak French, so that's like my place. Like I love Paris when we were there, so I would love to go to the more like tropically France part. It's not tropical, but
Well, you're already coming. We're going this coming May. We'll be going back. I go every year.
So I'll go in May then.
OMG. It's so beautiful. The European French vibe that's like still very much there, but mixed with palm trees. You're right on the water. You're right next to a couple of really major, like famous cities. I'm trying to remember the names of them. They're all from like Puff Daddy songs, but all these super famous cities. So it's like Ferraris driving up and down the coast. It's just like something out of a video game. And what's really cool is because I'm a musician and you are my business partner here in Canada. Look at the city that's between Cannes and Italy. There's like a pretty famous city right there on the coast that you'll recognize the name of. It's not Morocco, because Morocco's across the water. Do you see it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, fuck me.
We'll look at it later.
Because I'm a musician and you're my business partner, I get a grant because we throw these showcases at Midem Festival in Cannes. You just haven't come yet, so you're going to come this year for the first time. It is so dope. So we're going to have a real blast. And you speak French, so for the first time I'll have somebody French with me while I'm down there.
Yeah.
You. Speaking of Italy, I'd be remiss not to mention. And actually,
that noise you made.
Callie's in the building. It just occurred to me as I was about to say this is going to terrify you, but I think I should still bring it up.
Oh no!
Have you heard about the news story? What happened in Italy yesterday?
No. Is it going to make me sad?
It's this. So it's this huge bridge collapsed like midday and killed a hell of a bunch of people. It's a huge tragedy in Italy, and right now there's all these discussions and articles about all of these sort of ancient bridges from around the world that are like more than 60 years old or whatever. Yeah. And there's a lot of them.
Yeah. And
if you remember here in Toronto with the Gardner Bridge, a couple of years ago, they did a study where they're like, this is a ticking time bomb. Mm-hmm. Now it's not going to go in the next 5 years, but it's not going to last another 40.
Yeah.
So what's the plan type thing? We need to either fix it or tear it down and put a new system in, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's come up a few times, and they just always go, we've got more time. Italy obviously did that too, and then
don't tell me that.
they hit their threshold. Yeah, it's really crazy. The photos are like, it's like post-apocalyptic to see just like that much damage, and like a bridge. It's just like a whole midsection of a bridge is just gone.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah. So condolences to the people in Italy. Viva Italia. Let's pick it back up. One of my favorite news stories that I read recently is this McDonald's game story. And for people who compulsively read internet news, they probably already heard this. But for people who don't, I haven't heard about this anywhere else than on my Twitter stories.
Oh, yes. I love this.
But so everybody knows McDonald's Monopoly game. It's even when I took advertising in college, it was one of the campaigns that's like award-winning. They use it as a benchmark teaching lesson about how you can really engage customers. McDonald's Monopoly is iconic when it comes to promotions. It's maybe the most effective one of all time, you know, consumer promotions. So I read this really, really deep article. I believe it was posted by Vice. If you Google it, it's very easy to find. It went viral AF. It is a story about the man whose job it was to ensure that the contest did not get rigged. So for quite some time, he worked in this position and did an amazing job of ensuring that the contest did not get rigged. And he would take the little, the winning cup and take it to the factory, and they would pick which store it would go to, and they write down on a little fucking piece of paper which store it goes to, and they monitor all this information.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, he realizes that there's nothing between him and these $1 million pieces except himself. And we all know what happens when people realize that. So he starts rigging the contest. I cannot recall for how many years, if it's 4 years or if it's 7 years, but for a significant period of time, he rigs every single major winning game piece, period. He basically took the winning piece, would swap it out. There's a whole piece in the story about when they accidentally give him a tool that allows him to open up the secret case that has all the little tokens in it. So now he has the only tool that can open this case up and then close it again type thing. It's like a secret key that opens up this case, and they accidentally make two of them and he gets one of them or something. So he starts opening them up, taking the one winning piece out, replacing it with a shit piece, and then he takes the one piece to his sister-in-law in New Jersey, and then she claims a prize. And then he takes one to his barber in DC.
I feel like it couldn't be his sister-in-law because he would get busted.
It was his sister-in-law's neighbor, for example.
Yeah, totally.
And then it would be his, one that I remember specifically was his butcher. He gave one to his butcher for $250,000 or $100,000 and told his butcher, you give me 10% back in like gift cards or something. It was some non-traceable gift back or in cash or something. And then he tells his butcher, you need to give it to a nephew or something to take it one more step away from me. But then, 2 weeks later or a month later, he's watching TV and he sees his butcher pop up on TV and he's like, I just won $100,000. And then he goes into his butcher shop. He's like, motherfucker, I told you they're going to know that you're my butcher and they're going to find us. So eventually, I can't recall why they figured it out. The article's really great. But ultimately, the takeaway is this man rigged the contest for much time. The only people who won were his friends, his family. And when he gets arrested, he decides to take McDonald's down with him, and he makes this huge statement where he says, I want to release that during the entire time I worked with McDonald's, anytime the country Canada came up for a major prize, they would say, we don't want to give prizes to the Great White North. Roll it again until you get somewhere with some stars and stripes. Like, we want it in Omaha, we want it in Kentucky, we want it in Wisconsin, somewhere super American so people keep playing this game.
Yeah.
Which is not surprising, but is super duper illegal.
Yeah.
And you just think, so we go back.
Very bad PR.
Horrible PR. So we go back to where I said, like, iconic campaign. I remember it through my whole childhood. You're always talking about, can you win? Can you win? And then it turns out, for pretty much our entire lives, it was impossible to win the contest at all from Canada.
Yeah.
So
it looks
fuck
like
you,
he
McDonald's.
was an ex police officer,
That's right.
and it said he stole more than 32 million. That was the number.
32 million was the
32
total.
million
Wow.
in McDonald's prizes.
I know it was a bunch of millions. I just didn't know it got up to 32. That's crazy.
Can you tell your story about how you used to work in a similar thing?
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. So here's the funny thing about that story. And if you've read that article, or I guess if you haven't, but what he did for a living is what I did for a living for 1 year when I lived in the UK.
But you were an honest boy.
I was honest. Did I take anything? Let me think.
Careful.
No, let me think. I don't think I did. No, I don't think I did.
You probably took other promo prizes.
I took some chocolate and stuff. Yeah. Because I would always leave the factories with some chocolate, and I would eat it and be like, "No, we didn't get any chocolate." But I never took any prizes. So I did what he did for a living because in the UK, every country is different. In the US, I think it's privatized, where it's like, or sorry, not privatized, but it's internalized, where the companies have to self-police. But in the UK, there's this really interesting situation where it's the law is every company must be verified by a third party, and there's only 2 companies that are legally allowed to do it. So I worked for one of the 2 companies that did it, and so I worked for Nestle.
I was gonna say you don't have to say any names.
No, I can say the companies because I didn't. To be honest, I have nothing. I have no shit to talk.
Yeah.
I worked for Nestle and Lay's and.
But would they not want you giving out like the secret ways that they do stuff?
I don't think it's a problem.
Okay.
Nestle, Lay's, specifically Kit Kat. We did the After 8 bar. Do we have After 8 bars here?
I think so. Yeah.
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 So we did the After 8 bar. Was
Oh
a big
no.
one.
I think I see them in the UK stores, but I think After 8 bars are a UK thing. But we do sell them some places here.
And so basically, what I did for a living, I worked for Coca-Cola, etc. Was we would do a game with them, with Wrigley's, where there would be a ticket in one of their candy bars, or there would be a code in all of their candy bars, but only one of the codes is worth something.
Yeah.
All those types of programs. The code ones were sort of shitty because I would have a million codes that I would have to monitor and audit. Not fun. But what was pretty fun was when I did the stuff like this guy did, where I would actually take the ticket from our secret ticket safe, and I would drive it up to like northern England from southern England, and take it to the factory. And what's really cool about it is that when I got to the factory, even the factory workers couldn't know that.
This is the part that I'm like, oh, maybe they wouldn't want you saying that.
No, it's
because
fun. No, this is great.
It's a specific trick
love
that
it.
they do to their
I love
factory workers.
So they don't even want the factory workers to know. So just the factory manager finds out. The factory manager gets a call on his cell phone from our like government agency, but it's actually a private agency. Says, your factory's been selected to get the $1 million prize. We're going to be sending one of our agents, me, Ill Vibe, to come to your factory on this day at this time. He's going to put the winning ticket in one of the things. You don't get to know which one it is. Nobody does except him, me, and then we're done. And so I would show up, and I would put on my vest and my hard hat, and I'd pretend I was an inspector. I'd be checking the quality of the product, pretend I was some kind of government inspector.
Was the manager there who knew?
Yeah, so usually I would meet the manager, or if it was on a weird time.
So was he not allowed to like watch where you went?
No. They would. We had to be on our own, and we would. This is the crazy thing is we'd have them pull down like 50 different skids of candy bars, and we would open 10 of them. And we would open boxes on 3 of them.
Yeah.
So it would become tougher and tougher to monitor exactly where we were putting it.
Yeah, they'd really have to tear everything apart.
Yeah,
to,
and we would specifically go like Sunday evening where there was a skeleton crew.
Yeah.
And then we put it in we'd basically swap one of the boxes, and then I would leave with the box that had nothing in it, which is where I could have fucked around and kept it if I wanted to, but I didn't.
I think it'd be easy for you to get caught too.
Yeah, it wasn't worth it. And when you steal that much money, it's a big crime. I never had the balls.
Yeah, you're gonna go to jail for like a long time.
I never had the balls to steal that much money. $100 or $200 at a time when I was a teenager is a different thing.
Yeah.
But, I never got into that. But and yeah, so it was this really interesting job. And I'd get back in the car, I would call my boss and say, hey, the ticket's been placed, and I had a whole like paperwork. And then when it was like, sometimes it would just be like $100 prizes, and we would have to put like 10,000 of them out. So I remember one day we spent a week at the After 8 factory every day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I have to go through the thing where they like clean me off. I put like a little fucking hair hat on my beard and shit and and I would go into the line.
A what on your beard?
A hair hat on my beard.
A hairnet?
A hairnet.
A hair hat?
Whatever. A hairnet on my beard. And then we'd go to this like line and just have to like cut open random cases of like After 8 and put like one little, it was so like detailed and particular, and I did not really enjoy it, but it was interesting,
Yeah, for
being
sure.
I was like the Willy Wonka guy who was like delivering the $1 million tickets, and it was interesting because then when I would go into the store and you'd see the contest, I would be like, where am I? I'm like, oh yeah, there's no prize here. The prize is, I know what city the prize is in, it's not here. Yeah,
I'm just side reading this McDonald's article about so as soon as we heard that this happened, this big McDonald's scam, me and Anthony were like, oh, that would make a great movie, like a casino like movie. Yeah, and then like what, 2 days later, it was like the rights have been bought to make this into a movie.
Ben Affleck and Matt Damon bought the rights to make that McDonald's.
So what I'm
Monopoly
reading
movie.
is other heavy hitters included Netflix bidding on behalf of Robert Downey Jr.
Ooh, Downey Jr. would have been good in it.
and The Hangover's Todd Phillips, and Universal trying to snag it for a Kevin Hart-led flick. That wouldn't be good.
No way.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be like Casino.
I love Kevin Hart, but he would have ruined it.
But it wasn't just studios that came to the proverbial table. Martin Scorsese was interested in making Mix Scam and having frequent collaborator Leonardo DiCaprio play the lead.
Interesting.
That would be amazing. Martin Scorsese with
Damon
Leo
and Ben
as the
Affleck,
lead.
I think they have it in them to make a pretty cool version
Yeah,
of this.
I agree.
though.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would love to see a Scorsese Leo Mix
So,
Scam though.
Are you ready for the next movie, though? I want this movie made too.
Okay.
This one came out today, so you haven't even heard about this one. Lunch ladies in like Milwaukee or some shit. I don't remember exactly, but it's something like that. Stole $300,000. Wait, no, $476,000 in lunch money over like 20 years from their school.
Wow.
And the school noticed there was some money missing over a long time. And obviously, it's just like a school, so it took a long time to figure it out. But they got charged today for stealing $500,000, or it's like
Who would star in that movie?
They're two middle-aged women. So honestly, I would love if it was like Kate McKinnon and another woman in like old makeup. You know what I mean?
Yeah, do you think it would be like that funny of a comedy?
Oh, that's how
I was thinking more quirky. Like I was thinking more the lead from Fargo. What's that girl's name?
you go like more dark with it.
What's her name?
I'm also gonna.
Frances McDormand.
Who's
Or
that?
she's the one, you know her. She's from like the movie Fargo. Can you see the mirror? This lady.
Oh, I love her.
Yeah, she would be great as like the like stealing like the money laundering lunch lady. No.
No, yeah, she'd be great. I was just trying to pull up the pictures of the two ladies, screenshots. Oh fuck me, I can't find it.
I basically want every movie that's ever made to either be like Casino or like Fargo. That would be great.
So these are the two ladies.
Amazing.
Yeah, sorry, it was from Connecticut. Montana police announced that they had arrested two women sisters who worked as lunch ladies. Stole $476,000.
I don't understand how they would get that specific of a number.
Joanne Pasquarelli and Marie Wilson are suspected to have stolen large sum from two Connecticut schools over just 5 years. I thought it was like 10 years. Wow, $100,000 a year they are stealing. And they're like the two oldest, like least
I don't
criminal looking
understand how
ladies
they
I've
would
ever
get
seen.
such a specific number of what they were stealing.
That lady stole $250,000.
Hey man, I think she fucking deserves it.
I'm telling you, Kate McKinnon in old makeup would be hilarious.
Yeah, I would like that.
I'm in.
I would like that as well. I think we're just about ready to wrap up.
Are we?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm down.
We've almost gone for 2 hours, so
Okay, yeah, I'm super down. If you're listening, ways you can support. I've got some shows coming up in the Toronto area. August 19th here in Toronto, I'm performing outside at McGill Granby Park for the Ill Vibe Block Party. We've got Mighty Rhino on the show, Skeevious Tips, Meyer Clarity, and special guest from Los Angeles, Veteran I, will be joining us.
Ooh, nice.
And then in September, if you're not around in August, in September, on September 28th, Is it September 28th or 29th? Oh, September 28th. Yeah, September 28th, performing with T-Zank in Toronto. I rarely bring a touring artist into the city and then promote the show myself, but Zank's one of my favorite collaborators from the US. We have my biggest hit of my career is with Zank, Till I Come Home. He's coming to Toronto, and we're going to throw a concert. And listeners of this podcast, I'd love to put you on guest list, so feel free to hit us up on socials in Toronto at The Painted Lady, Ill Vibe and T-Zank, September 28th. And subscribe to the podcast.
Yes, please.
If you do the iTunes thing, Apple Podcasts, rating it 5 stars, saying, "Oh my God, I love this podcast. It's hilarious." You might convince somebody who's considering to subscribe if they're seeing cool shit there. When you comment on our socials, it makes us feel good. Tell us shit you love from the episode. I really love how from a recent episode, we got so many messages about that song that we were humming. So many people told us what the song was and sent us links to the video and links to remixes and links to songs that had sampled it. And so that was really cool. And so send us more messages, comment. It means the super world to us. I just did such a little social media push before we went live or recorded today because I was just thinking about how much I love it and I really want everyone to know about it. So everything that you do that helps kind of big it up and make people see the comments and the likes and the interactions when they show up on our socials, it's just really great. We appreciate it.
That's all we got. Peace.